This again is basic logic. Okay, and because I'm an oversoul polarity integrator, and certainly I've shared a lot of this throughout my entire video history, and probably what prompted this is something that Kim Gogun talked about, particularly in relation to the one as a polarity integrator, because of the way that gender is defined. Like in childhood, you see a male and a female. Okay, I use different terminology to explain how simple this actually is. When you think of the electromagnetic energy, radiation waveform harmonic spectrum between acid and alkaline, okay? So I know what cold fusion, right, and hot fission is between two magnets. One's hot, one's cold. That's gender. So in other words, I know what the truth is. Gender splitting technology, because I experienced it with Aaron. Aaron is a homosexual. Now, do you understand how that happened, that he chooses to be with a male? How is he ever going to reproduce his species, which is his DNA, which is his seed, if he doesn't have a grower? Okay? That's the end of your species. Okay, so what we're talking about here, when Kim was talking about they're happy people, okay, because remember, I'm a polarity integrator, which means I cancel out the clocks, which is the spin ratio harmonics between one magnet and another magnet to experience the first one. That's a monopole. That's what I am, a monopole. A single pole experiences eternal light, which is the source from which it all began. That means it cancels out gender. So if you want to think of male and female, think of silver and gold, which is what? The elements. So when the elements are perfectly balanced between one and the other, you're experiencing zero. Now you're not experiencing any gender. That's called pre-phase matter. That means I'm not in the matter yet. I'm not experiencing matter, which means in my mirror, all the color codes, okay, or if you will, all the programs that are running in an API and interface. Okay, so when we think about gender splitting technology and not knowing one from the other, which am I, a girl or a boy? Think of that as magnets. Which magnet am I? Okay, because you realize that the chromosomes are paired, right, between X and Y. So you know what a gated Y is, right? It's got 3 lines to it, right? So you have the center point of those lines, with the center point, if you will, when you think of center point of gravity. So you have the center point of a sphere. So imagine the first sphere, which is the first creation, which is the first line of communication, which is the first vertical line. That's the one because that's what it looks like. Okay? So you start with the first line of communication. That's the first informer. That's first light. Okay? That's eternal light, which is eternal unconditional love. It's on fire. To do what? Spin data, visual information, which is the graphical user interface, at the highest rate of speed. Why? So you're not ever losing any voltage. So when you have both magnets that are spinning at the highest rate of speed to become one magnet, that's the first pole. That's what that is. That's known as a rod. The first rod. First line of communication, which is the first informer. So when you're experiencing at the highest rate of speed because you're not holding on to one electron, you're experiencing the one. That's a one. So now if you want to throw graphene oxide into this, what is it? What is that trying to do? Splitting the atom, right? Oppenheimer, Trinity, they're inverters. So what we're talking about is massive healing. Okay? Because it began out of eternity, which is eternal love, which is eternal energy creation spheres. Now we're all experiencing being loved by the one, the first line of communication, which is first creation. The first creative expression of what love, which is on fire to create, is experiencing what love is that goes on forever. So that means that that energy is forever creating things out of what love is, which is what we are. It goes on forever gifting electrons. That means we don't hold on to one electron. That's the highest speed server there is. That's what it means to be eternal server. That's what it means to light yourself on fire, because now you're experiencing the highest heat, right? Which is a blast furnace. That's why they can't take a picture of us. Okay? Because of the time and density. Ooh, we need more time to leave the shutter speed open. To do what? Stop us still. Capture the codes. Right? Can't capture the codes. It's not running at that rate of speed. Why is that? Because it's artificial light. It's not running at the highest rate of speed, which is eternal love. So when we're experiencing eternal love, then those who represent the LGBT community are experiencing being loved by the one. So what we're really talking here is nuclear reactors. The magnetic polarity reaction states, when the polarities are canceled out, which means the ions are canceled out, what is that? No charge for energy, which is no batteries required and no memory required to experience eternity. What do you want to experience next? Because the magnets are opening and closing at such a high rate of speed, which is known as a magnetic moment, the moment that we experience is experiencing eternity, eternal love to our own heart. So that becomes the energy of creation, which is first creation, which is the first expression, which is the first line of communication. That's how simple it is. I know, Mama. You know, it's so this is why it's a massive healing job, right? So you realize when everyone is experiencing what love is, which is the one, then everyone is experiencing what the law of one is. Right? So there's no exceptions because it either is or it isn't. That's when you get into the false positive. Right? The false positive between the ions, between one and the other. Which one are you? Are you false? Remember, now we're into binary, true or false. Right? Fortran, transhumanism. Right? Which one are you? Well, now you can get into choices, the free will choice. But when you realize what they did as a result of implants and gender splitting technology, it means it's something that was done, which is against the law of one, because now they don't know who they are, because they're not experiencing the one. This is when you get into gender confusion, which is convoluted, of what we're held captive to as a result of what? Technology. The implant technology. Holographic inserts, all the rest of that. Right? Running signals interference, so you're not experiencing what? The one. Because that's what it began with. It began with eternal love, which is eternal light. That's the primal sound and light field that is joined as one. That's what androgynous is. That's perfectly balanced to experience the hottest blast furnace because we're not holding on to one electron. Holding on to energy or holding on to electrons is what creates density. You want to expand your consciousness to expand more of what love creates? Let go of the energy, which is holding energy captive because an electron is consciousness. So when we're holding on to consciousness captive, why are we doing that? Fear of letting go of one electron, which is the same thing to say we're holding God captive, which is holding one captive. Holding one captive is holding one electron captive. So now you can translate that as equal in mass, but here in an electron and a proton, n equals 0. No charge. That's how simple it is. So this is why they rolled all this out into the consciousness terrain. Which one are you? Right? So you can see, for example, because of the relationships that I've had, it's just all recorded, but if I could pull up the holographic film when I used to have conversations with 3 other males, right down the road here, when you're androgynous, you should have seen these discussions, right? And how this is actually all related into the way that sex, reproductive software development, when you get into all the gender side of the stuff between two magnets or two magnetic reaction states, between binary and trinary, right? 3 and 1, and I've described this till I'm blue in the face, the relationship that fire and ice have with each other, right? Between the cold, compress, how much energy can I compress, right? Before we uncoil the torsion field movie player, how fast is that movie player, right? Pressure. That's why over the last 24 hours, I've been taking naps off and on, but it's a lot of itching, right? And then the torque speed differential, I had pressure. I had a lot of pressure that began yesterday in the morning. And so what was the day yesterday? 13, which is 4, which is the tetrahedron, right? The gas, hydrogen, electric potential hydrogen. So you see the torque speed differential between acid states of mind, right? Remember I mentioned this before? When I'm in the house with Aaron, and Aaron I said, Aaron, I'm going pH 12, right? How about pH 13? And so Aaron says, I'm trying to be as acidic as possible, right? The acid of an electron, the use of an electron, right? So you can see how that's like a rubber band. Snap with the torque speed, which is called give. Hey, something's got to give. Something's got to give. The giver of electrons, the giver of eternal light, the giver of eternal love, right? So I try and keep it simple, because I normally work with children. And I've shared this before, why I work with children, because all the deep implants and the programming that is related to all the programs that are running in the background that is holding our energy captive, which means we're not creating anything. This is all the looping stuff until all the energy's been siphoned off, right? Because that's what fear does. When you're living in fear of what love is, you need a source of energy in order to maintain your speed of what you are aware of. And that speed is the acceleration of a black mirror. And that's why they target children, right? Get them fresh out of the womb, right? I know. And why is that? The purity of their heart, the purity of their fire. That's why when I was a child growing up, and I realized this, is it don't bring any more souls in here, right? Oh, really? Would you subject them to this? This is not a beginner's class in spiritual energy wars. But if you want to learn how to master your energy, and somebody said this is a master class, yeah, it is a master class. But you can see out of that how many were consumed. So I had to deal with this when I was a child, when I realized it began out of what love is, and love is not a vampire in which to learn through. Now we're back to knowing one from the other. But what happens if the torque speed is going in the other direction? They're consumed at such a high rate of speed, they don't remember the one. Right? Particularly when they're tracking you coming in. That's why so many indigos were lost. And one of the reasons why I said, how many souls you want to keep throwing in there, which are God's angels, how many God's angels keep getting consumed until the pain is so massive. That's enough. That's why I realized as a child, it works as when I am what love is, which is what you are, which is what I am, I'm giving love to. And I realize that I'm losing more of what I'm giving love to at a higher rate of speed. Then I realize I'm losing more of what I am, which is what love is. And at some point, you got to put on the brakes, right? That's enough. That's enough pain and suffering. Because what happens? Then the classroom becomes counterproductive. And that's counter space. And counter space learning is not productive, is it? Now you get into tampering with, if you will, the source from which it all comes. The classroom is being tampered with, because you can see how that works with torque speed and learning how to give away energy as a result of the fear, which is the resistance in which to do it, as a result of massive trauma, as a result of video games that are playing Star Wars. So Star Wars is officially closed forever. And I've been saying that since I was a little kid. Because where do you think the information comes from? The first line of information. The first creative expression. That's Cosmina. You all have a great day. Thank you, Mama. Breathing dragons. The eternal spirit of a breathing eternal sun. Mua.